Good morning, everyone. It is May 2nd. I have returned from a successful, unless you consult my wallet, trip to the greenhouse. And we are so excited. We're all stocked up in plants. Here's a look at the seedlings. There's some trays that nothing came up in. I think some of the seed has just gotten too old. I know some of it's been in my collection for quite a while. The tomatoes are looking really good. I'm really happy with this level of rooting right now. They should be good to keep in these cups for another 2 to 3 weeks, which is about when we'd normally be planting them out in the outdoor garden. Although I am tempted to relatively soon move the stuff out of this side and plant the tomatoes in where they're going, along with some of the peppers. And my peppers I got started much later than I would have liked. I would have liked them to be about 3 weeks earlier than they currently are. We had some germination issues. Some of them, I had a lot of issues with them getting trapped in their seed heads, so much so that they just would end up rotting in there. So I'm not sure if that's a fungal issue, a soil issue, or just a seed issue. That's something I need to research more on. That being said, I did get a few green peppers, because I know I don't have a ton of those. Like bell pepper types, they're actually going to be yellow and ripe. But these plants look really good. There's a local greenhouse that I frequent. I'm good friends with the owner. She's really lovely. She's wonderful. She knows a lot about plants. We like to chat whenever we go for a visit there to see her greenhouse. Excuse me, I'm just sipping my coffee. Here's my coffee mug. It's a nice tin mug. I don't have to worry about it if I accidentally leave it outside somewhere. That being said, this was more than I intended to buy. I went with the car because I told myself that I was not going to be buying any trees. I then bought some large shrubs and I also bought a tree because it was the plum that I wanted. That I've been looking for. I didn't expect to find it there. Anyway, so I'm gonna have to go back on Saturday. Let me know if you guys want to see a shot of her greenhouse. I'm sure she'd be willing to let me film there as long as I'm not disrupting other customers. But I'm loving this. Look at this foliage. This is so beautiful. This is a spirea. It's a semi-false spirea, semi-false. Yeah, it does flower. It's zone 2. But I think the most wonderful thing about it is this coppery new growth that's just so... It's got a lot of life in it. I want to put it in a shady spot, false spirea in general, like part shade to full shade. And I'm going to put that out in the front of the house where there's not a ton of light, and I feel like that will really pop in that sort of shady spot. And I also have bought this. I've been looking for a hardy white rose for a long time. This one claims to be fragrant, double pure white rose. It's going to be a pretty big one, 5 to 5.5 feet. Zone 2 hardy. It's supposed to be fragrant. I'm excited about that because I love me a white rose. I have a really hardy, similarly sized red rose called the Hansa rose. It's more of like a full deep pink, but anyways. And all my brassicas. I do need to still find some more cauliflowers because, again, some of the seed heads had issues, which is why I'm thinking it might be a fungal or soil issue. And I also forgot to order sprouting broccoli seed, so I'm going to have to find those somewhere. Either plants or seeds, and but I'm not going to make another order just for that. It's not worth the shipping. We've got some really lovely looking lettuces. I have grown lettuces in trays before, and I've never had them look quite this nice. I think they really like this cool nights and plenty of sunshine. But these are pretty much ready to go in the garden. I think they're looking really good. We've got radishes. And some beets. The beets are a little bit slower. These were seeded all at the same time. And again, there's been some germination issues there as well. So We've got red radishes, and then we've got daikon, and I'm excited about these. I'm making kimchi, so, which is also what the Chinese or Napa cabbage is for. I've got quite a few of those. My onions are looking good. Her onions were looking better, but it's okay. It's not a competition. They're all plants. But I thought I'd give you guys a little peek and then show you what's been happening out in the yard. Now you'll see I've got tons of buckets of water. My big trough broke its seal over winter, so we didn't get to fill that when the rain came. On Monday we had a really, really nice rain. We actually had just over half an inch, which is a lot for us. We often don't get any rain until June, and the snow melted really quick and there wasn't a lot of it, so the groundwater level really needed this rain. It was wonderful. But since my trough didn't get filled up, I ran a hose from, well, you can probably still see the hose, from my rain barrel out on the side of the house. That filled up really quickly, and then I filled up as many buckets as I could find that were relatively clean to trap some rainwater with, and that should get us through a little while at least. But let's have a look at what is sprouting in the garden, and I'm going to show you the good, bad, and the ugly. This is King George. This is actually Prince George II. And I think there might be a rhubarb in here, but I'm guessing this ground is still relatively frozen because this is on the north side of the greenhouse. Oh, there he is. He's alive. This is the north side of the greenhouse, so the ground will have thawed here last. So he's a little bit slower than everybody else, but he's coming along. The buds on the apple trees are still in the fuzzy stage, so they're several weeks away from blooming still, and I expect that'll be in early June. We have the first leaves coming out on the cotoneaster, or cotton Easter. I never really know how to say it. It's such a strange word. Now, this is my prize apple tree, but looking at it yesterday, I'm noticing some worrying signs, and I'm definitely going to need to do some research on this, but there is a yellow discoloration on the bark, and it is splitting the bark and peeling off. I would have said that that was an injury of some kind, but there hasn't been any injuries. And as you can see, it's sort of swelling and splitting there. And there's also discoloration and similar splitting occurring on smaller branches. This looks like a disease issue to me. I need to research it a little bit, but I am thinking I might have to cut this tree down, which is devastating. But I think it might be able to be saved. So if we look at this point, it's about here where the issue is beginning. And these could regrow new sprouts. There's obviously been new resprouts on that one already. And I think that might be a sign. Sorry. These water shoots here might actually be a sign. There's more water shoots a little bit higher up as well. That there's a disease issue with the tree, and so it's trying to recover, survive. But I think I might have to actually cut it back to here and start over, which is terrible, but this is not a healthy tree. So I need to look into it. I need to figure out what I need to do as far as sterilizing it. How do I clean up the debris? Because sometimes cutting it down in the wrong time or with the wrong tools can actually spread the disease to other trees. I know with black knot you don't really want to do it when the spores are active, and you don't even want to keep that wood on your land. Like, you don't want to compost it. I don't even know if you want to burn that stuff. You might actually want to bag and trash it. And so I need to look into what to do with that specifically. But I'm pretty sad about that. That kind of stuff just happens sometimes. Okay, you can see there's a bit of a trenching project. When it was raining really hard, I noticed that this rill is not doing its job anymore. To be honest, it was only set up temporarily, and it's been a little bent out of shape, and not leveled quite properly. This path needs more gravel to begin with to level it up. And then I think we can reinstall the rill. And then I've trenched a little bit here out to the rhubarb. Now I've got a hole in the ground here, which is generally not a great idea because people will trip and fall in it. But there's, you can see the rhubarbs are coming. There's rhubarb all the way around this hole, and once it's grown up, it's so full that nobody would even walk into this hole. You can't actually reach into the middle of it. But the purpose of it is to hold rainwater in place long enough for it to really soak into the ground to water both this plum tree, which is also suffering for some unknown cause. I think it had really hard winter kill actually one year. You can see there's lots of sprouts up from the base, which is not good. That's rooted, that's grafted stock, so I'm going to need to cut all of that out as well and give that tree a hard pruning. But it provides water to this little area, lets the water really sink into the ground. And when we have really dry spells, it's wonderful to be able to get the water where I need it to stay. Because we have really sandy, clayey soil, water tends to run off. Now, this is my first year with this plant. This is actually a horseradish. I got some pieces from my sister-in-law out in Saskatchewan. I know horseradish can be quite an aggressive plant, so it's blocked in by this big piece of wood. And on the other side, by the hedge, beyond the hedge, it gets mowed. So any that escapes will still be somewhat contained. And I am planning to put some of the strawberries that I bought in here. Our alpine strawberry varieties are struggling a little bit, but I think some of them will be coming back. You can see there is new growth on these. When we get a really early thaw and then a bunch of refreezes, the foliage tends to die back fully. But oh, we just got weeds. Okay, there's still life in the crowns though, I think. So fingers crossed that these will come back. They're looking pretty sad right now. And then there's King George in all his glory. He doesn't look like he's had a rough day in his life. And this is King George's little army of onions. Honestly, these look as good, if not better, than the ones I started on purpose. And I am quite tempted in a week or two to come in here and just pull this up and thin them out and plant them out in the garden, see if I can get some decent bulbs off of them. There's another George right there. We've got some columbine coming in. Again, you can see the cotoneasters are beginning to leaf out, especially at the bottom. They really come in from the bottom up. I don't know about you, but I like the sound of my feet crunching on gravel. It's such a nice change from the squeaky crunching of snow. We have here a gooseberry, and he is looking so delightfully happy. The older wood is much more vigorous looking than the newer growth. It's all still growing, but the newer stuff is just a little bit slower to leaf out, so that's interesting. This is our second or third year with this plant, I believe. I can't remember if we got it. I think we got it last summer because I don't think we planted anything here before that. So he survived his first winter and he's looking quite glorious. This massive mess is mostly dead. There is some life still in it, but because this plant reblooms primarily on new growth, we're going to cut it down to the bottom and let it regrow all the way up to the top as it did last year, and I have no doubts that it will do just that. The thyme has also taken a really hard hit this year. Usually it comes back quite evergreen, but it is looking very dead. And fear not, it will probably pop its head back up in about 2 years. But I think for this year I'm going to have to cut this back Unfortunately, this is really wiry, really hard stuff. Like, it doesn't... So I can't rake it out. I'm going to have to actually come in here with shears and snip it all the way back, because you just can't rake this stuff. It's almost wiry. There's lots of weeds and lots of flowers coming up, self-seeding. The dianthus are coming in quite vigorously this year. They're a little bit less, well, they're supposed to be less hardy. According to the package, that's zone 5. We're zone 2 out here. Zone 3, if we're being generous. But I have lots of dianthus that really is enjoying its life. This one here is a zone 7, supposedly. Sometimes I think the zoning is just based on where it's been tested, and a lot of places haven't been tested, maybe. But nevertheless, we have the green carpet of weeds, and we've got some green growth. A lot of the evergreen stuff really took a hit. This one also often comes back pretty lively, but if we peek under the cover there is new growth coming in. So I think this one, I might have to do this one by hand as well, just to prevent myself from destroying the fragile newer growth. But it's actually quite a thick, this is a 6-year-old plant, I believe now. It's quite a thick layer of material, so I'm just gonna have to prise that away gently to make sure that I don't totally uproot the new growth. And again, this is attached to the same rootstock as the new growth will be coming out of the base of, and so to snip it back instead of raking it will prevent me pulling up all of the roots that I actually want to preserve. Here there's another alpine strawberry that's coming back from the crowns. And who are you? You look like a weed. You might be a dianthus, but you look a bit like a weed. The strawberries are coming back a little bit, at least. That's encouraging. We have salvia. You can see last year's salvias. There's a couple that have reseeded themselves, and they are regrowing in quite nicely. There's a couple different varieties. There's like a slightly frillier one, and then there's a flatter one. Looks more like sage. We've got the hollyhocks coming in as well. I've got to clean this up pretty quickly here. This, as well as the wildflower meadow, will need to get pruned out pretty... Well, the wildflower meadow gets mowed, but that needs to be done pretty soon so that the new growth can come in without getting lopped off right at the beginning. The juniper, I am grateful to say, seems mostly untouched. It's a little bit perhaps pale at the tips. There's a little bit of burn right on this end. But considering how much refreezing we had, I actually think he's looking really, really healthy. I'm very pleased. I was concerned he might die out completely. A lot of these evergreen trees and shrubs in the winter, when the sun comes out really strong, they will start to wake up and photosynthesize again, and then the sap flowing, as soon as it refreezes, will kill all of the cells that sort of wake up. So the fact that there's not more winter burn is really encouraging. Granted, he's pretty flat, but I do know that he was out of the snow at least a little while. I am happy to say this guy is also coming back. This is a delphinium. This one's a really lovely little blue one. He's not a super tall delphinium, otherwise I would have put him with the other ones. But some of these guys, I think, are just going to be... I was going to say slow, but I don't think they're actually being slow. I just think it's actually just a little bit earlier than it normally is for a lot of these guys. The flax is growing in nicely. I did not seed this flax. This flax seeded itself from the wildflower meadow all the way out there. Yeah, so, and also the yarrow's coming in nicely. Again, I did not see the yarrow. The yarrow was over there and it migrated. This yarrow doesn't look as good. Of course it doesn't, because I planted it on purpose. Might have to do some sort of plant renovations, thin this part out pretty well. I've had issues with crackgrass through here. Granted, the yarrow is generally out competing the grass in this section, but the other plants out that way are suffering with a little bit more. And I also need to dig up the yarrow around the raspberries. It's a little too much. We've got big plans for this area. The path is going to come in. I need to move this drainage from our downspout here. I need to move, there's a drain there. I need to move it a couple feet this way, and then the path will actually go up to the pavilion from there. And then everything on this side is going to get seeded, planted up. I'm probably actually going to try and seed it into clover. I don't want to put it into grass because I'm pretty sure I'm going to integrate this into the flower section here. And I don't want to have to fight the grass. Again, there's already enough grass here. I honestly could just mow it for a couple years and it'd be grass. But I also think that little Alberta spruce is going to have to come out. He's looking too sickly, and that's not a good spot for him. And there is a rhubarb back here. And this is the rhubarb. I have been forcing it for the last couple years. This year I have not. As you can tell, it's exposed, but it's making some big seed heads. So I'm going to keep an eye on those and cut them off as soon as I can so that it doesn't waste its energy trying to make seeds. I do not need more rhubarbs. I have, let me see, there's 3 around the pit, and then there's one by the greenhouse, and there's this one, and then there's another one, a red rhubarb over there. So I have 6. I don't need more. And my husband has purchased another blackberry, well, another. We have raspberries, and we have one blackberry-raspberry hybrid. And he has planted a blackberry, and I think I'm going to have to move that cane over because that's too close together. But these are all going to get wrapped in wire so that we can keep the raspberries somewhat contained. And then it'll be like pillars in theory. We'll see. If it doesn't work out, we'll just have to go to war and cut down the extra roots. I need to go through there and pull out extras anyway because they spread. Perhaps not my best idea, but it was an idea and it went. It doesn't look like much, but there is actually delphiniums coming back in. Here's some. You can see they're actually looking a little bit red on that one. So they're not popping on the screen very much. The buds of our maple tree are they're actually looking green already. The cedars survived despite the very harsh winter. I tried to wrap them, but the wraps kept blowing off in the wind, and then I think my neighbors might have inherited a few. I'm gonna have to try to do better next year. I'm gonna buy better wrap material, I think. But they look decent for being cedars. Northern Alberta, they're difficult to grow in general. I don't know what I'll do with them when they're big. This is a cherry. He's also getting ready to bud out. And we've got a flowering crabapple. Oh, and there's a real pink bud on that. Let's see if I can get you in focus. It's not really doing the color justice, to be honest, but I'm excited. It's a thunderchild flowering crabapple, so the leaves come in kind of purplish, and then it flowers this beautiful deep pink, which is lovely. Anyways, there's just a few things that are sprouting in the garden already, and the currants are also popping. So there's a little start to our spring, and in the next couple weeks there's going to be a lot of drastic changes as we clean up the pumpkin patch. Planning to rearrange the compost bins. If we get around to it, we might even move the shed, or at the very least put the shed on new blocks. Right now it's kind of been sinking. The wood beam underneath it is rotting out, so we need to replace that so it's not leaning anymore. Other than that, there's a bunch of garden stuff to do. There's the pergola to build in the center of the lower garden, and yeah, lots of work. But thanks for coming along.